Simon says subscribe and click on the bell icon to receive notifications.
In this set of lessons, we are going to be working with the Photoshop beta version once again to explore neural filters. You can see that neural filters uses AI just like some of the other Photoshop tools, but you're going to see again they're a little bit more off the shelf, but definitely have a lot of options and advantages. Some of them work off of the cloud, some of them have to be downloaded ahead of time, and many of them take a little bit of time to process. So just to warn you and prepare you of how these work. And again, they are in beta, so we have to be patient and certainly give feedback to share your results. So let's go ahead and see where we can find these neural filters. If we go over here to filter, you're going to see third option down is neural filters. Open that up, you're going to see there's a whole list of them available. Yours may look a little different than mine, and you may have to actually download some of them. So you'll see like a little cloud with a downward arrow, and that means that you need to download that, and that actually does take up space in your computer, but it will allow you to use that feature, and then sometimes it'll allow you to actually make it run a little bit faster. So you'll notice here I have not used that one. I can download it from here. Here's that one. Download that one. Download that one. But some of these other ones I'm on top, I've already downloaded them. So the first one that we're going to work with here is our skin smoothing. So you're going to see all we do is just flip this switch, right? So if I go ahead and just click on that now, you're going to see that it's going to run its little kind of algorithm and then give it whatever it thinks it needs to do right away. Okay, and we're just going to wait. Sometimes it takes some time. Notice on the bottom it says processing on device. Sometimes it might say processing in the cloud. All right, now notice there it is. It's doing its thing. It's already done its thing. Now, essentially what we're looking at here, those of you who've worked with filters in the past, this is kind of like a surface blur. And because we're working with filters and because we're working with Photoshop, it does give us the option to then really kind of control how much we're going to get, not only here, but also in post-production once we're back on the layers panel. So if you want to, before I start messing with any of these, let's go ahead and see how we can see a before and after. So if you notice over here in the lower left of this right pane, you can click on Show Original, and you're going to see kind of the work that it's done. You know, for better or for worse, right? It's kind of done something, and maybe this is what your client wants. Maybe this is what you want for a particular situation. You're essentially just kind of smoothing out the skin, and it recognizes, hey, you know what? This is the face. This is what needs to be smoothened out. And for some of you, this might look a little fake. For some of you, say, hey, you know what? I actually wouldn't mind more of that. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to go ahead and make this up a little bit, my smoothness. And again, let's see what it's going to do. Processing on device. And it's not dramatic, and it still tries to keep things relatively natural. So not bad. And then let's go ahead and bring up my blur a little bit. And then I'm going to try to keep on like my little crow's feet here just to see, all right, what's the thing I want to work with? The stuff underneath my eyes and my cheek, it starts to look a little bit airbrushed. So I'm going to control that after the fact. So I'm pretty much okay with that. Now before we leave here, just take a look at this little survey. Are you satisfied with the results? Definitely let them know as you're working through all of these, and then really give them some feedback. So once it's out of beta, they know what they're working with. And you can also submit an image so they know what you're working with and what the results were, so there can be some evidence of what your claim was. All right, now on the bottom here, in this case for my output, I'm going to say Smart Filter. Okay, now you could do just kind of like another layer, or you can override that current layer, but I like to choose Smart Filter for many of these because it acts as a mask on top of my original, therefore making it essentially non-destructive. So therefore, I can then mess with whatever I have as far as this neural filter on top of it, and then really sort of lighten it. Okay, but I think again, my original image is not destructed, and then my layer itself that's on top of it can then be edited. So let's go ahead and see what I mean by that if you haven't worked with this before. I'm going to go ahead and click OK. And we're going to see my image come in, and you're going to see there it is. Take a look at it. It's running its thing. Beautiful. And now you're going to see here is my Smart Filter, and there is Neural Filter. Great. I'm going to turn that off. Click on the eyeball here, and there's my original old guy image. There we go. Okay, I'm starting to like that smoothing option a lot better now. You can see, all right, not too bad. And then, okay, great. But you know what? It is looking a little bit fakey. Probably don't need it like, over certain parts of my cheek, and maybe it's a little bit on my nose and my mouth, and even like my forehead maybe. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go to the Smart Filter mask right here, and I'm just going to paint black over it. But I like to zoom in a little bit just so I can see kind of what's happening here and what I can control, and I can have a little more control to make it look a little more natural. I'm going to zoom in so you can really see what I'm going to be doing. So once again, click on my little mask there, and then go over to here to my brush, and then make sure that black is your foreground. And if you're not seeing black and you've kind of changed some colors, you can always click on this guy right there. This will take you to your default black and white, and then you can always toggle back and forth where I want black to essentially to color right through here. Now, before I start doing that, you also may want to adjust your opacity. All right, because opacity essentially is going to be like the strength of this. So if I go this full black, it's going to take me exactly to what it looks like there. But I still want a little bit of smoothing, but not a lot. So I'm going to bring this down to, let's just say, I don't know, 50%. Okay, give or take. All right, so now what I'm going to do is just kind of go right through this. So I have a little bit of like human texture here. Okay. So you can see I kind of brought up the lines of my forehead that were not there before. Now it might be hard for you to see what's going on here, so what I'm going to do is just increase the size of my thumbnails by going over to my little flyout menu and then choosing panel options. I'm going to make that nice and big so you can actually see, in fact, that I am actually making some changes here. Okay, so let's go ahead and bring up my opacity. Now I'm back to my original, and you can see there's my black right there. Okay, and I'm going to go back again to here, go back to white, and then bring it, just hide it just a little bit there. So you can see what I'm doing there, just kind of the difference of just kind of having that level of control. All right, let's bring it back to black, maybe over my eyes a little bit. Okay, this guy, we don't want him to look like a doll. So let's go ahead and just bring up some kind of texture in the skin if there's anything in the neck. Okay, and let's go ahead and see before and after. Not too bad. Okay, so that's a really great way to start if you're looking into wedding photography or any other kind of thing that you need to kind of work with portraits, and you really want to just kind of smoothen out faces. This really does give you a lot of control without a lot of the other sort of complications you might have with some of the other filters. Okay, so enjoy that, and we'll see you in the next lesson on some other neural filters. In this lesson, we are going to stay with neural filters. We're going to stay with this particular image, and we're also going to stay with Photoshop Beta. And again, I want to make sure that we are working with our Photoshop Beta version. You are going to see that we do have more options to work with, and you're going to see that they are offering a lot more experimental options. And also I want to show you where that wait list is so you can see what's coming down the pike. So in this lesson we are going to talk about Smart Portrait, but while we're there, let's go ahead and take a look at some of the things that are coming up for us in future versions. So you see here the Neural Filter panel is going to open up, and you're going to see over here on top we have all filters, and then on the right hand side of that little tab you have the wait list. So some kind of fun ones looking forward to: Portrait Generator, generate unique photorealistic faces based on characteristics you specify. Okay, that's going to be interesting, right? So maybe it'll be completely AI, right? We're kind of doing that already to a certain extent, but this one is going to really superpower it. Okay, water long exposure. Notice how the differences between these, how this is a little more smooth, right? This is a little more choppy. So essentially it mimics when you're taking a picture with your camera and you have a longer exposure open with your camera lens, it smoothens it out a little bit, right? So it's good with light, good with water, a few other things, but you can transform that. Okay, and then you have this shadow regenerator. So I took it at the wrong time of the day. What a bummer. Well, Photoshop can work through that and then make it so your shadow is no longer there, and then it just brightens up everything that it sees as a shadow. Okay, and then noise reduction, you can just see basically just kind of improves your photo overall. If it just sees that there's maybe just some dust or just something coming in from the light to time of the day, it just understands what a good photo is. All right, so as you're coming through these, kind of give it your vote, tell them that you are interested. All right, Very good. Now let's go over here to Smart Portrait. And you're going to see how it is going to give me a nice little overview of what it's going to do. And it does show me some examples of it. All right, and you can see here, this filter processes image data in the cloud, which means that it's going to take a little bit of time. All right, now we are not going to do all of these, okay, because they do take a long time. And in my opinion, they're not perfect yet. They are not ready for prime time. We're going to do a handful of these just so you can see what it can do. And at some point, maybe you'd like to do them on your own, and then maybe in 6 months from now, they are improving. So I would recommend keep coming back to the Creative Cloud portal and then making sure to see if there's any updates and then make those updates on the beta version. Okay, so what we have to do first of all is just toggle this on. This all lights up. Okay, now the thing that I've seen that does not work very well is this happiness. So I'm not going to mess with that too much. I have seen that it actually makes you look less happy a little bit more effectively. The happiness itself just really makes you look like kind of a fake human being. It just kind of plops on a smile on your face. So I'm not really going to show you that one because it's going to take a lot of time just for all of us to be very disappointed. The facial age, I've seen what it does, it kind of messes with your hair, and it'll also mess a little bit with like your skin a little bit and the shape of your face. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make myself a little bit older. Okay, so you can see there I am, and I'm 50 years old right there, and we're going to see what we can do to make me look a little bit older. Okay, now this could be good just for whatever reason, you know, because you just need to do something for advertising, right? And you're creating this reality of somebody who is the star, but then you know what, here they are, you know, without this product, or here they are in the future as a grandfather, something like that. You can do that. So let's just go ahead and increase this. Now, again, I just want to warn you, this will take a little bit of time depending on your computer and your internet speed and the image itself. All right, so here I go. I'm just going to drag this up to about here. And let's just see if that's actually 25 years or these numbers are kind of arbitrary. All right, it's kind of more like a 25% type of thing, but we'll see. Now in the bottom, you'll see here it is processing it in the cloud. So it's doing its thing. It's going to take some time. And then I'm going to stop talking and I will fast forward past this part, but you will see a difference once we finish. And we're back. Actually, that wasn't so bad. I stopped talking for about 10 seconds. And you can see it's actually not bad, right? It's like, okay, here's this guy. They didn't make me like, you know, super bald or super fat, but they did definitely ageify me, right? So if I want to see what it looked like before, let's go ahead and click on this original. And we can see that's actually kind of scary, kind of creepy, but pretty realistic. It thinned out my hair, added on some gray there. Okay, and then I think it brought back my hairline, made my face a little bit kind of wider with gravity, you know, added on some more eye stuff. Okay, so let's just go ahead and see again the before and after. All right, so even like underneath my cheek, everything like that. So that's pretty good. So hair thickness, all right, if I am really trying to kind of go next level, I can give myself a little less hair. And you're going to see it doesn't go extreme with this. It doesn't just suddenly like chop off your hair. Like it recognizes the context of the character and of the subject that we're working with. So let's just go ahead and bring this down a little bit. And again, wait for the AI to process in the cloud. And we're back. Not so bad. And you can see again, it did chop off a little bit of hair up on top there. And that is probably what I will look like. I mean, it's really shockingly accurate. But I will have to save this and come back in 20 years or so, and we'll see. Okay. Now, eye direction, I don't tend to mess with that one too much. I mean, unless it's absolutely necessary. But I haven't seen a lot of success with that one. Let's just scroll down a little bit, and you'll see there's also these expressions, right? Surprise and anger. So if we remove the happiness down lower, or we increase the anger, we'll see that we're going to get, I won't say the same results, but I'm more likely going to work with the anger than the surprise, right? And this surprise may, you know, open up its eyes a little bit, definitely open up the mouth a little bit. And again, I'm not super impressed with those results. But let's just go ahead and make this old guy a little bit angrier. Let's just see what happens there. And again, processing in the cloud. Let's wait for it. Okay, and that was only about, what, 10, 15 seconds. And you can see, all right, he kind of looks a little angrier. Okay, but let's just go back to where he was before. All right, he wasn't super smiley to begin with, but you can see, all right, yeah, I guess I can see him being a little bit angry or a little bit more kind of inquisitive and curious. But you'll want to really play around with these. Just good to know that they exist and how easy it is for us to work with them. Okay, and then global, you have your head direction, the light direction. Just really play around with those, okay? And if it's really important to you, have it move a little bit, okay? I like him looking right at the camera, but you see that it does do what it needs to do. It changes the light direction. Those aren't so bad, but just know these options are here and they're going to be inside of your smart portrait, all right? And then you can see here, if you wanted to work with these, right, retain the unique details of it, right? So whatever that means, like it's recognizing certain things like the shape. You can see here, like, you know, my ears and my crow's feet, all that stuff. You really want to make sure that it retains the original quality of it. Maybe you don't want it at all. Maybe you're trying to go a little bit more extreme. You can always bring this down altogether. Okay? All right, and then when you bring this back, if you are doing some type of mask on here, if you are choosing to use a mask on this, you can actually make it so the feathering is a little bit lighter on that, so it's not sort of a hard edge around it, right? So kind of a good rule of thumb, keep it around this same number. I wouldn't mess with this too much. All right, so again, let's go ahead and check out the handiwork. Okay, and I'll see you in about 25 years, Grandpa. And now I'm going to keep it at Smart Filter. I'm going to click OK. It's running its thing. And there we are, and very similar to our last exercise, we see here is a nice little mask that I can maybe bring some of this hair back if I want to, right? Maybe I can bring some of my smile back, right? And whatever you want to do, trim my face up a little bit. So once again, I go back over to here to my mask, and again, I'm going to choose my black brush. And typically when I'm working with my brushes, I do like to have my hardness all the way down to 0. If yours isn't already, you might want to check that out if it's not working properly. And then for now, I am going to bring up my opacity to 100%. And let's just see what's happening underneath here, where you can see, okay, you know what? Let's bring some of this hair back a little bit. Okay, all right, not bad. See, I have that kind of control, right, to bring some of that back if I want to. I can also zoom in here and see, well, what did they do here with this part of my lip, right? Okay, I could bring that back. So you can see I still have control even after the filter has been applied. Okay, so try that out. This is going to be our neural filter number 2. Super powerful. Keep checking back for some of the new filters coming up, and also experiment with some of the other parts of this particular filter in the coming days on ones that I did not show you. See if it works, and certainly give Photoshop some feedback as you try it. In many instances with your photography, you're going to want to create a different backdrop than what the image originally had. So post-production using neural filters, you can create your own backdrop using AI with just search prompts. So for this particular client, I would like to have a different background than this generic one. So I'm not really sure which one yet, so I'm just going to kind of go shopping for it. But let's just see what the process is first of all. Well, the first thing you want to do is actually select the background. But in order for me to select the background, I need to select the subject first. So I think that's really kind of the best way to go, and I'll kind of just do an inverse selection. So what I'm going to do very simply is I'm going to come down here to select subject. If you don't see this option down here, it could be because you do not have the contextual taskbar activated. So make sure you select the layer. This will pop up, and then very simply I'm going to say select subject. And it's going to do its best to kind of put its little marching ants around there. It's going to see what's what, who's who, if anybody is anything at all. And then, if not, you can always refine the selection using some of your selection tools like the lasso, the quick selection, or maybe even you're working with vector to be able to do that, to convert from channels. You can do that as well. All right, so let's just say this is a good starting point for me, okay? But what I'd like to do is now refine this search, right? Maybe I want to feather it a little bit. Maybe I want to make it so it's a little bit more sort of aware of her hair, you know, things like that. So how am I going to do that? Well, I'm going to come over to here, again, to my contextual taskbar, and I'm going to come to here to select and mask. Notice there are other options here for advanced types of selection if you want, like smoothing your selection, expanding contrast, feathering your selection, etc. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and just go to Select and Mask. And now this is going to take me to this dialog box of Select and Mask. And you'll notice over here in the upper right, I have this little view option right there with this little drop down. So the little drop down is going to show me different ways that I may want to view it. So if I go back over to what I was looking at before with my marching ants, I can see all that. Sometimes if you put it to black, you can really see the contrast between the foreground and the background. I'll also notice that I didn't get some of the selection there, so I might want to add to that as well. And then you also might want to try it with different ways, right? Just really depending on your needs. All right, so very good. Now let's just go ahead and see, first of all, I need to enhance this. So I'm just going to go and zoom in a little bit, and I'm going to make my brush a little bit bigger just to kind of get a little bit more of this selection. So I'm going to hold down my Alt or Option key, because essentially what I'm doing here is I am selecting the outside. I'm not selecting her. That's why I'm removing the selection. All right, now this time I'm going to just add on a tiny bit to the flowers. Okay, and then if I would zoom in a little bit more here, I'm just going to add on to that, and maybe I would want to make my brush a little bit smaller. I think that's pretty good for right now. Okay, and now I've got what I need, because really essentially I'm just building out a backdrop for her. All right, now the next part you may want to consider, let me just go ahead and just bring this up a tiny bit more, okay, is working with her hair a little bit. So I just want you to notice just a few things here. Up on top here where it says Select Subject, you can try clicking on that again and see if that helps you. But if you click on the little drop down, you're going to see that we have two choices. You have the Device Select Subject for quicker results, or you have the Cloud Select Subject for detailed results. I'm going to go ahead and try that one. Then when I select on Select Subject, then it will continue to do a better version of that. Notice it's spinning around and around. Let's see what it can do. Take a look at the hair, potentially. We're going to do the hair in just a second, a little bit more. And now I'm just going to say Refine Hair. Okay. And got a little bit more kind of the wisps on the outside. Let's go ahead and bring it up just a tiny, tiny bit. And go over here to Smart Radius on the right-hand side. And now I'm pretty much ready to kind of take my chances at this point, because we can always refine this after the fact, because we are going to be working with a mask. So I'm going to click OK, because this is only a part about my selection. Nothing really more here, because my goal is to select what? Just the outside here. So now that we have everything all selected, let's go ahead and go into our filter menu, and let's go ahead and choose Neural Filters. And it's going to take us now to our Neural Filters panel. You can see she's going to kind of disappear because she is not the one that's selected. That's not what we're concerned about. We're only concerned about the background. So I'm going to choose Background Creator, and notice how that toggles on, and that might give you a nice little overview of what it is. Collaborate with the power of AI and create expressive backdrops, textures, and patterns based on what you describe. Okay, that's pretty cool. So here is a sample prompt that they're giving us, and you can certainly take that one if you want to. It's really up to you. But you can also take a look at some of their popular prompts. Right, so I'm just going to go ahead and click on that. And we're going to see, oh wow, there's some really nice ones here. And I'll just go ahead and, I don't know, just choose this one, Starry Night, Double Exposure. And they're giving you some ideas, not only of what you can output, but how you want to describe things. Okay, Starry Night, Double Exposure, HD, stunning. Okay, Wood, origami, wow, that's kind of neat. Liquid swirls in beautiful teal and blue colors with gold powder. Wow, so amazing. A lot of detail. Here's this like cyberpunk, right? Very, very different. So this kind of, in any level, create patterns for you at any time, not just as backdrops for another image, but anytime you wanted to create something, you can do that. Now, I have found that when you are trying to create something like, and there's nothing on the stage, it won't work. You need to actually select just a white square or something like that, and it'll just kind of plop it on top of it. Just don't select anything so it doesn't override it. But just know that you can't just like make something out of thin air, right? So just keeping that in mind. But you might be able to do that with the regular generative AI, but not in this case, all right? You will get an error message, but there is a workaround. Okay, so I don't know, let's just for fun, this one's kind of neat. I'll just go ahead and choose that one. And let's just see how this works. We have select a preview, and they're going to give us 3 different options that we may like based off of this cyberpunk neon electric style. Okay, wow, that's kind of cool, right? Not so bad. I kind of like that. But what if I wanted to put in my own? So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to say abstract red, right? I'm just going to be very, very broad in this case. And then I just want you to notice here there's this number 85 for variety. We're going to explore what that means in just a second. Because even though it's only showing us 3, if you move your mouse over any of these, right, they're going to say, hey, you know what? If you like this one, we've got other ones similar to that. So you can go up to about 85 different variety types there. Okay, so that's pretty neat. Okay, you might want to choose any one of these. Totally up to you. You do have the option of selecting more than one if you like. In the interest of our time, since it does take a little bit of time to select more than one, you can absolutely do that. You can go shopping and say, I want this one, I want this one, I want this one, and then just decide, hey, you know what, I'm going to return the one that I don't want, ultimately. Okay, so I'm just going to choose one for now, right? Just like that, it gives me a nice little green, gives me a nice little blue and white checkbox right there. I'm pretty happy with that for now. That's good. Now, if you are planning to do more than one, I do recommend doing the new layer group, right? But again, you have all these different options down below, right? But I'm going to keep it as this. And notice it's still processing. Even though I just chose one, it's still processing. So keep that in mind. Just be patient. And eventually, I'll be able to click OK. And then this guy will come with us. And there we go. I'm going to go ahead and click OK now. And let's see the magic. Let's come in, and beautiful, there she is, and there's her outline. So right away I'm just going to show you, hey, you know what, don't freak out by this, because she's still there. All we have to do is mask her, okay, because we basically have to say, hey, you know what, this is what's been highlighted all around there. Let's just go ahead and click on our little layer mask, and then she will appear there. Okay, so don't worry about that. Now you can see she's part of this nice little background. Okay, now we can see how the backdrops work, and you can see that's pretty neat. Now, if you wanted to manipulate this at all, if you're not happy with, let's just say, these little white shadows and stuff like that, even that little thing right there, you can always come back into the mask. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to click on the mask while holding down my control key or the command key on the Mac. And I'm going to zoom in, and I'm just going to want to see kind of how I'm doing here, right, with all this. Because maybe, just maybe, I want to get rid of that kind of white glow. And then maybe there's some other things over there. Oh, I need to get rid of that. Right, so let's just see what I can do here. In this case, I'm going to go back over here to my context menu, and I'm going to expand the selection. So I'm just going to go ahead and just say, you know what, let's expand it by like 7. I click OK, and then notice how it kind of comes into her face a little bit, because I'm expanding the selection of the outside, and now from here, I'm going to do the Alt and Delete option on my keyboard to basically say, hey, you know what, let's mask it a little further into her face. So Alt-R option and Delete, and now that's a lot cleaner. It's very subtle. We just kind of chop that off a little bit. Okay, so you want to kind of just try all that stuff out. If you wanted to, maybe one more, maybe you do a little bit of a feather option, right, and then just maybe bring that up a little bit, just kind of a little bit of a cleaner thing there. Okay, and then once again, let's just see if that does anything at all. All I just did was my Alt or Option plus the Delete key, and then I'm going to go ahead and deselect, and that looks much, much better. I love that. All right, now I'm going to go ahead and fix any of this stuff here. Don't really want that. All right, that's a little bit much. So now I can go back to my regular selection tool, and then guess what? If I try to do this, it just goes away. No problem. No problem. So that's why, you know, when we're doing our selection, we don't have to worry about it being super perfect. And of course, you're going to want to make sure that your brush hardness is down as low as it can be to have a little bit of a more kind of natural sort of edge to it. All right, let's go ahead and zoom out, and that is pretty cool. All right, so Just try it out. The options are limitless. All right. Have fun with this. Really be creative, be productive, be impressive. See you soon. And welcome back, everybody. In this lesson, we are going to talk about another neural filter called the landscape mixer. Well, we have a landscape here, and I'd like to change the tone of this. I'd like to change the seasonality, the topography. I want to actually make this fall scene into a winter scene. And I want to kind of really make it look very natural and sort of preserve what's originally here. So there's a number of different ways that we can do this. First of all, let's go ahead and once again, let's go back into our filter and choose neural filters. And this is going to pop up once again on the right-hand side with our neural filters panel. And you're going to see that there's going to be an option here called landscape mixer. So when you click on that here, it's going to see here magically transform a landscape by mixing with another image or changing attributes like time of the day and season. Okay, that's pretty cool. And then notice there's some presets they can work with here in terms of, different weather, maybe different topography, like it could be the desert. Notice there's a little sunset coming in there. You can totally transform anything that you have here. Also notice that down below, there's day, night, sunset, spring, summer, etc. All right, now in order for these to not be grayed out, let's go ahead and just toggle that on. And again, notice it's in beta. You can always give them feedback. Okay, so what I'm going to do right now is let's go ahead and just add on some winter to this. And let's just see what it does, right? Because I want to make this into a snowy scene. And I'm just going to blast this out all the way to the right. And you will see that as soon as I do that, it's going to say processing on the device. And it's going to do the best it can. It's going to maybe add on some snow, of course, maybe remove some leaves, just have a little bit of a dusting. So hopefully it's going to look more like winter. And although that took a little bit of time, we finally ended up here. And you can see, not too bad, right? So maybe it's the beginning of winter. It's just right after there's a little bit of a dusting, right? Not too bad. I'm going to go ahead and just add on potentially some other things here. Let's just go ahead and maybe make it at nighttime and see what that does. So I'll just bring this up a little bit. Maybe not so dark at night, and just bring it down in terms of light. Let's see what that does on top of everything else. Again, we might have to wait a little bit, so I'll pause the video and come back to it as soon as it finishes. And not too bad. And you can see how it preserves a lot of the lights and the shadows coming from the trees and everything like that, but it's a different time of the day. Maybe it's even, in the morning. Okay, so lots of cool stuff you can do here to really transform things completely tone-wise, mode-wise, mood-wise, everything. So I'm going to go ahead and cancel out of this because it's not ideal for me, but you know what? That's a great start. And then here I am back to my original. So let's go ahead and do that one more time. Let's go over here to filter, and we're going to say neural filters again. And this time I'm actually going to choose one of their presets. And the presets, again, are going to be up on top here. So let's go ahead and just do one more time, landscape mixer. And then I'm going to choose, I don't know, let's just say, I don't know, one with like a lot of snow. Okay, so let's just try that one. Click on that. Notice there's my strength. You can always control that. Typically, after the fact, I don't like to interrupt it, even if it does let me. But once you click on it, the processing begins. And let's just see what it does. It's really kind of having a lot of information built in to what that snowy, snow cap, even mountainous paradigm is part of, right? Meaning that it's wintertime. So really going to give you a lot more snow than possibly working with the winter that I just dragged over to the right. And look at that. To me, that is a true winter scene. And it's amazing because what it transformed it from was this little mountain scene. So depending on what you want, you're going to want to really experiment with all of these, right? Because it's quite possible you want a very different scene. Hey, but guess what? You can always come in here and modify it. So just for fun, let's just go ahead and see what the sunset might look like with this scene right here. Let's go ahead and bring this up a little bit. Again, waiting for it to process. See what we're going to get with a nice blasted out winter scene converting our autumn scene, which is in the day, and then adding on sunset. And that's pretty neat, right? You can see there's a nice little glow right there, and it's shining through some of the leaves. And we've lost a little bit of our snow, so keeping that in mind that you may have to make some kind of compromise for one versus the other. Okay, beautiful. I'm going to cancel out of this one more time. I'm going to show you a third way that you can create the look that you're looking for. And that is going to be based off of a pre-existing image that you have. Okay, so once again, let's go over here to Filter, Neural Filters, and then let's go over here to Landscape Mixer. And this time what we're going to do is we're going to move away from this Presets tab and go over here to Custom. Okay, and then notice here it says Select an Image. Now, you could have an image that's already up because you were looking at it, so when you say Select Image, that other image may appear here in the drop-down, but I'm going to go ahead and select an image from my computer. And you should have access to this if you want to try this out. And you might have to actually go looking through it here because notice it says PNG. This image is a JPEG. And notice here I have a snowy river. Okay, so just keep that in mind. It's a little bit odd. It doesn't show all of them. You have JPEG, JPG, and then PNG. So if yours is not showing, you'll have to click on this little drop down. And then here is snowy river. And now I just double click on that. And it's doing its thing. There it is. That's its model. And it's looking for all that snow. It's processing. And there you have it. And look at that. Pretty amazing. It actually just really recreated snow on branches. So delicate. Now, here's the beautiful part. I'm now going to export this from my Neural Filters panel into a Smart Filter. And I'll be able to control little bits here that I may want to see, because maybe you don't exactly love this, so you want to put a little finishing touch and some tweaks onto it. So I'm going to click on my little drop down here. I'm going to say Smart Filter, and then very simply choose OK. And you could have done that with the other two that I showed you as well. But just note here, I am in my Layers panel with my new image, and also here is the filter. Okay, so what am I going to do now? I'm just going to go ahead and see what I can poke through here to be able to say, hey, you know what? Don't necessarily want that original. I don't want this new one. I want the original to come through. So guess what? I'm going to go back over here to my brush. I'm going to poke through that. And then let's just see what's going on inside the river here. And I'll poke that through. It's like, oh, okay. You know what? That doesn't totally make sense because it's showing, you know, maybe images of my original one as a reflection, so I probably don't want that. So I'll just switch back to white, and then I'm just going to go ahead and mask that back. Okay, that's what's so nice about masks. But you know what? Maybe I'm kind of creating this like effect here. Well, you know what? I'm going to have the top part here of my trees. I'm going to make them just very slightly just like that, and then maybe down here I'm actually having them do a little reflection. Let's do these guys up here, and then maybe just a little reflection there. So I am really kind of telling a story. And then maybe I'll bring down my opacity a little bit so it's not so strong. Or these guys here, here, and here. Maybe just along the edges. So just doing my best Bob Ross Photoshop style. And you can see, you know, switch that back and maybe not so. Okay, not too bad. So what I'm wanting you to get out of this is that I can very easily control what I have here, right? I do not necessarily have to stick with what they're giving me. I can control it, number one, with my own image, and number two, when I bring it in, I can then affect it with my masking on the Smart Filter. So really extraordinary, looking at different times of the day, different seasons, different images, maybe making it sunset, maybe a little bit darker, a little bit lighter, everything you have here, but completely transformed and completely realistic. In this lesson on neural filters, we are going to talk about the colorize neural filter. And this is really one of the more impressive of all the neural filters. So we have this black and white image here, and I have another one that we're going to work with in just a little bit. And they're in black and white, and I'd actually like to see them in color. Well, if I were to do this manually, it would take me a very long time, and I would do it very poorly. and it would look very unnatural. So let's go ahead and see how Photoshop does it now with neural filters. So I'm going to go here to Filter, Neural Filters, and then again on the right hand side you're going to see your little panel appear, and then as you look down below you're going to see there's going to be an option here for Colorize. So when you click on that, you're going to see it says Colorize helps with recolorization of black and white photographs. Well, that's exactly what I want. All right, you can see there's my original image. Okay, and then typically I'm going to tell you I do like this auto color image. There are ways for us to do it manually, but you'd be very surprised how remarkable of a job that Photoshop does when you do auto color. If you try to do things a little bit more manual, I have seen that it's a little bit sort of like kludgy. It's a little bit not super smooth. So let's go ahead and see what it's going to do right off the bat, right out of the box. When I click on Colorize, you can see it's processing it. And believe it or not, this does it a lot faster than some of the other filters. See that? It took about 3 seconds. And look how sharp that is, right? And it really understands, you know, what railroads look like and what grass looks like, what trees look like, okay? And then maybe you want to adjust the sky a little bit, totally up to you. But just know that you do have some options in case you did want to, let's just say, saturate it a little bit more. You want a little more blues, a little bit less magenta in there, right? All these things here, noise reduction, especially when you're working with old photos, that'll really give you some nice options there. Okay, so let's just go ahead and just see if I wanted to manually color, let's just say the sky to be blue. Okay, so if I click up here now, notice I'm getting this crosshair. I'm going to get that, and then I'm just going to go ahead and make the sky, I don't know, let's just try to find a nice blue color here. It's going to go kind of extreme a bit. Okay, and now you can see a little bit how that's kind of changed a bit, right? Let's just go ahead and make it go a little bit more. A little bit more, and you see it doesn't do it like perfect, but you can see it's doing some things, and it's also kind of added in some color to his hand. So I can always move these around, you know, so it's not kind of doing what it needs to do. But this is not something that I suggest, honestly, not at this stage. So I'm going to go ahead and remove this, and then remove the other one, and now we should be back. Now I'm noticing that that green that I thought was part of the sky is actually from the colorization. So let's go ahead now and just zoom in a little bit, and we can kind of see what's going on there, right? So there's just a little bit of a shadow that's happening there. So I might want to adjust that here as well. And then what can I do? Well, I can just make an attempt to kind of just bring some of that down to maybe the color of his skin, if at all possible. Let's try to find that. Wait for it to process, and it's going to do possibly a little bit better. And let's maybe bring up the color just a bit. Again, it's processing one more time, and it's really doing the best it can. Maybe let's bring down the strength this time. Again, seeing if that affects things. I might need to maybe come in a little bit more, but I'm just going to click OK for right now, bring it into a smart filter, and let's just see what it looks like once it finally processes. And it's still pretty remarkable. Now, of course, knowing that this is in fact a smart filter that has a mask on it, I might make an attempt to see what it looks like underneath that green to try to fix that. All right, so let's just go ahead and maybe zoom in a little bit. Okay, so I'll go ahead and come over to here, zoom in, and then go over to here to my mask. And then I'm going to bring down my opacity down to about maybe 30-ish or so. Use my brush, and then I'm going to paint black through that. And I'm just going to kind of poke through it a little bit and see what that can do to kind of just bring some of that green down. And then his original color, you can see now comes through, and you can't really tell the difference because, you know, it's like black and white, more or less kind of the color of his skin. Okay, and of course when I was using that color picker, I could have actually just grabbed some of his skin color there and made it match, but I still find that that manual way of doing it is still a little bit behind its time for right now, but I'm sure it will improve. But you can see that does look much better. So if I switch this back, okay, let's go ahead and bring this back up to 100. You can see that green is still there. I switch this back, and now you can see, all right, not too bad. Now, let's go ahead and see what we can do with an old photo. What can we do to colorize this and what Photoshop will do for us? So let's go to Filter, Neural Filters, and then again, Colorize. Let's go ahead and turn that on, and automatically it's going to do the auto color image. You can see it's processing, it's doing its thing, and not too bad. Okay, so it can be maybe a little kind of fakey looking, but this image is kind of a little fakey looking too, right? I mean, that's pretty much true to form of what she's got here. All right, but now if you wanted to, you could play around with some of these things here. If you wanted to, let's just say, bring down some of this blue here, right? You can do that. So let's just go ahead and maybe slightly bring down some of that saturation. Wait for the processing. Okay, it's very slight. Okay, maybe that's a little bit too much red, but hey, you know what? I got rid of some of that blue. This is really just going to be a spice to taste. Let's try out this color artifact reduction. Okay, and that's basically where it's like tried to fake things that it couldn't understand. Then you can maybe reduce that and see where that comes out from. And there's not a whole lot of noise on this, but like for scratches and stuff like that, let's just see what it does if I bring it all the way up here. Keeping an eye on the photo, see what changes. And nothing too dramatic. So it's not too bad. So now let's go ahead and just say Smart Filter. Do that once again. And what we could do now is once again take a look at our Smart Filter mask, and then if I really wanted to have some of this gray back in there again, I can very easily do that with my brush. And then I would just maybe keep my opacity down, to like 30 or 40%. And just have that kind of poke through a tiny, tiny bit. Okay, you can see I'll be able to still get some of that original color from the gray, but then maintaining some actual color so it's not totally drabbed out. Maybe even on her face, I might want to consider that too, because maybe there's some texture there on her face, making sure again that my hardness is down to 0 and that my opacity is relatively low. And see, now it's not so like over-colored. Let's maybe go on her lips a little bit. Let's make that a little bit smaller. Just a little bit right there, right? So then it's not so over-colored. It doesn't look like it's been obviously colored. Okay, but I think the style of this makes it look like it's been colored just because of the way it was started, just because how it is. But it's pretty neat. So let's go ahead and turn it off. You can see what it looked like before. Now it's all colorized. So pretty impressive. Try this out. Find one of your own. In the next lesson, we are going to talk about how to restore old photos. That does take quite a bit of time. Keeping that in mind, it does need to cook for quite a bit. So keeping that in mind, but it does a pretty good job. And if you're not comfortable with doing it manually, it can be a nice little substitute.
If you're not a subscriber, click down below to subscribe so you get notified about similar videos we upload. To see the full course that this video came from, click over there. And click over there to see more videos from Simon Says It.